the smallest thing the naked eye can see is roughly 4,000 times larger than the average liposome. And I know, it is really hard to picture this being 3D because it is so tiny, but it is in the sense that it's spherical and really similar to our cells' vesicles, meaning it has a hollow middle that can hold and transport drugs really, really well. But the cool part about the liposome is that even though it's manufactured, it actually mimics our cells in a variety of ways and not just this vesicalness. One of those ways being that it has a phospholipid outer layer that allows the liposome to be protected from our bodily environment, but then also to facilitate exchanges between our bodies and the liposome. And this membrane works with membrane proteins on the outside, and what they do is they allow the liposome to release the drugs inside of it exactly where they need to be. And it's this ability of the liposome to target specific areas in our body that make it such a great alternative to treating conditions like inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, and hopefully soon something as groundbreaking as HIV.
For the past 3 years, I've been working to see how we can implement machine learning technologies to somehow make this quantification process, this neurodegenerative disease diagnosis process, more streamlined, more efficient, and more equitable, so that a patient living in a rural community in America can receive the same exact treatment that a patient would in a metropolitan city center in a university hospital, despite the need or availability of neuroradiologists. This result, an algorithm with 98% accuracy in classifying every form of tissue present in a patient scan. So why does it matter? In the future, technologies like the hyperfine portable MRI machine could be loaded with software such as this to provide neurodegenerative disease diagnostics in communities in which we have never seen them before. Places across the world, regardless of availability of medical centers, MRI machines, or neuroradiologists to analyze scans, could finally gain the capacity to diagnose patients' disorders and to also gain deep insights on how they may be fixed due to patients' unique structural profiles.
But while we were unpacking the moving truck, I spotted these girls across the street, and they were all kind of huddled into a little circle, giggling and laughing. But then this one girl boldly and confidently approached me and said, "Do you want to play with us?" And on the surface, I was all calm and collected, and I was smooth with it too. I was like, sure, I would love to. But underneath, I was honestly jumping for joy and doing a victory dance. Because at that moment, everything changed. All my fears and anxieties about what was to come vanished. They literally went poof in my head. I realized they understood what it was like to come into a new and unfamiliar place. Most of the girls in that group had moved 5 or 6 times already, and we were only 8. But they did what we typically do as military children: introduce ourselves, adapt into a new environment, and try to ease the fears of others with moving. My friend took me under her wing, and we began going to every new person's house that moved into the neighborhood, introducing ourselves and asking their kids if they wanted to play. Sometimes this was before the boxes were even moved out of their front lawn. And yes, we did play in the boxes.
I want to return to that great dystopian picture of the death of books in Fahrenheit 451, one of my favorite covers, like they contain the matchsticks within them. But in any case, the part of it I want to point out is that the literature professor Faber in that book argues in a way that I think we don't often notice that it was never really the books. They aren't the thing themselves. They're just what brings the thing to us. And then the container, the medium, can change and still give us the thing that we want from it. And we can also find those things, as he points out, in lots of places, maybe if we demand it, or maybe if we learn to look harder. And so really what I think we need more than anything else these days is an attitude of revision. And yes, I mean we should fix our essays. But I also mean that we ought to take that same kind of attitude, that assuming that things are never quite done, that they can always be seen differently, that you can come back and improve, you can alter. I think we should take that attitude towards just about everything in the digital age. We should see it again each day new. And to have a true attitude of revision in literature and without means that the next page is always page one.
And this might sound weird, but I used to think dopamine was such a terrible thing. And I think it's just because I didn't truly know the real meaning of the real role it had in everyday life. But I just heard all these things, especially about our younger generation, how we're getting too much and it's causing all these bad things like addiction. I've heard of dopamine detoxes, which recommend taking a break from outside sources. So it really never occurred to me that this chemical was so integral to life itself. Realizing this was a pivotal moment in my life because it's when I fully realized how balance plays a role in everything. This moment is when I truly understood that I could change the way I lived just by changing my mindset. So, after realizing this, the whole mindlessly scrolling through social media thing got really old really fast. January was coming along, and honestly, I was so excited for 2022. On New Year's Eve, I decided for the entire month of January, and maybe even more, I was going to delete all social media. New year, new me, right? I was finally going to take initiative in being the best that I could be. And guess what? It worked so well. I started to wake up excited for school, excited for the new day, and to interact with my teachers and classmates and make the best of my day every day.
Eating disorders are a problem that are not taken seriously enough in our education system and in the actions that we take to prevent them. They are not taken seriously enough, and we need to do more than teach vocabulary definitions to students about words like anorexia and bulimia. We need to open up conversation, and we need to do more and have more conversations about the implications of eating disorders, both in school and at home. We need to do more. It was not until very recently that I looked in the mirror, and I didn't see a stomach that was too big. I didn't see thighs that didn't have gaps between them. I saw myself, and that is all that mattered. Eating disorders are a problem that lasts a lifetime, and no one should have to undergo that.
A recent NYU study showed that almost 50% of students, high school students, reported feeling a great deal of stress on a daily basis, with most of them citing test scores, GPAs, and homework as their greatest sources of stress in their lives. Along with that, socially prescribed perfectionism also takes root throughout our childhood. This is mainly because parents and even teachers begin to set extremely high standards of their students and kids. Now, obviously, this is somewhat justified, right? They want to see their child succeed. They want to see their child go into a good career field, succeed in that career field, and then eventually retire and settle down. But on the other hand, that much mental stress and emotional anguish can have really bad negative repercussions on a kid. I think it's okay as a parent to want the best for your child, but also try to empathize with them, understand what their limits and boundaries are, and adapt to them, not to go after their imperfections. In today's world where everyone knows everything about each other, it can be extremely easy to get caught up in how others appear and their results or accomplishments rather than our own. Our society has come such a far way from its previous days. Perfectionism is now a bare minimum rather than a rare feat. But I think it's high time that we show ourselves a good amount of well-needed self-empathy. How do we do that, though? I think the main idea is to give ourselves some breathing room. Go easy on yourself when it comes to making mistakes or producing worse results than your peers.
Evolution. You've heard it in your classes. It's the reason we have all multiplied by the masses. The very nature of the present human comes from the past. The way we behave is based on the way our ancestors did to last. There's more to it, though, more to this routine of today. For every person is different, and we don't always obey. We're powerful, and we're ready to change our display in case there's, trouble in our way. The giveaway: it is possible to overcome. Our minds are capable of ideas that soar past the sun. Stay humble, stay true, but remember that evolution begins with you.
A lack of professional diversity leads to a sense of tunnel vision. Like in my case, I only get exposed to a healthcare pathway, so I get zero other exposure to other careers around me from home. Professional diversity in a household is necessary in order to maintain an idea of more than just one career. I started taking dance classes, coding classes, and art classes, though those specific ones didn't go too well. I even tried exposing myself to more extracurricular activities as I grew older to prevent the dreaded tunnel vision. As I've had the opportunity to learn, professional diversity is a necessity in a household. And as you have had the opportunity to learn, exposing ourselves in such a way can be difficult. However, a growing student can take action to prevent these one-sided views. Many cities do also offer educational programs for curious young students, and you can all research about these online. A lack of professional diversity should never limit you in any way. You must introduce yourself to professional diversity, whether it be present in your household or not.
When I was 9, I saw my first talking car. It had the ability to talk, drive by itself. It could log in. It had its own GPS system. It could search through computer databases. But it wasn't a Tesla. It was a Pontiac. And it was the Knight Industry 2000 kit car. And if you remember that from the 80s, this was the car that predated those types of things. And the lead actor in the story, Michael Knight, in order to talk to his car, had his iPhone, right? He could talk to it with his Apple Watch. So he could get Kit to drive around and do things, and they could solve crimes together. But all of these things were predicted and shown on TV in 1980s. And so I think it's really important for people to understand how much science fiction has influenced our daily life.
The sooner we start working together on the solid spacefaring foundation, the sooner we start putting together these pieces of the puzzle, the less risk we're putting on the future of our own species, and the more opportunities we'll get to create, explore, expand beyond our wildest dreams. When I initially investigated this topic, I happened to find that these three areas, transportation, manufacturing, and energy, will be our guiding light in space exploration and colonization. But there may also be many smaller challenges in other fields we'll encounter along the way. What we do know for sure is that there are more challenges we will face, but also more solutions we'll find. But in order to find those solutions, we must work together, not as Americans or Russians or even Ukrainians, but as humans. Because, as Neil Armstrong once said, one small step for man is one giant leap for mankind.